Hey y'all, what is going on? What is going on? It's your girl, Melba Pearson, Melba for Miami, Melba for Justice, also known as the Resident Legal Diva, and it's time for another Mondays with Melba. So, we're now in March. It is Women's History Month or Women's Herstory Month, however you'd like to refer to it. So, I'm going to kick it off in a slightly different way and talk about something that's not necessarily legally related. We're going to talk about Beyonce. And we're going to talk about Tracy Chapman. So, why, you may ask? Well, Beyonce has made history as the first Black woman to top the Billboard country charts with her song Texas Hold'em. Now, some of you, if you watched the Super Bowl, there was a teaser during the Super Bowl that she was releasing two country music songs and some clips were played. And since then, it's been released and has just blown up all over the place, right? Separately, Tracy Chapman, writer and performer of the song Fast Car, was awarded the Country Music Award Best Song of the Year because of the fact that she wrote the song and all of that. Now, it was now gotten more popularity as a result of Luke Combs, another white male country singer, singing that song now and bringing it to a whole new generation because the original song was from the 90s. But again, basically, she had to like come out of being, not in hiding, but she's more of a private person. So she wasn't really performing and touring a lot in recent years. But she sure enough did show up to the Country Music Awards to sing along with Luke Combs about, singing the song together as a duet to show, hi, this was my song, right? So I wanted to kind of center that because I think there's been a lot of debate. I've had some debates with my colleague, my dear friend, Besiki, and others about whether or not what Beyonce is doing in terms of country music is up to her standards. Is that some sort of appropriation? Kind of like, what was the backstory behind it? So I want to approach it from a couple different ways. First, I want to approach it from the historical perspective in terms of Black folks in country music. And I also will interweave my own kind of journey with country music, because again, Diva and the Cowboy. I am married to a cowboy. So, as a result of our relationship, I started to learn more and explore more about country music. So, sort of the two sides of really looking at the genre and figuring out where do Black folks fit in. So, let's start with the history, right? So many of us, especially those who live in city or urban areas, most of us from Black and Brown communities, may not have had a lot of exposure to country music, right? This definitely was not something I grew up with. Again, New York, Caribbean household, didn't know nothing from nothing about it, right? A lot of, stereotypes that basically, it's about dude's dog ran away, he's heartbroken, he's, drinking in the bar, the whole thing. Like, didn't really vibe with it, right? Well, let's go back further. Country music actually originated with Black people. Shocking. Kind of shocking, you would think, right? But let me talk to you a little bit about that. So, the basis of country music, especially in its original form, the basis and the main instrument is the banjo. And the banjo is something that came over from Africa. So, let me talk to you a little bit about that. So, the modern day banjo is a descendant of a West African instrument that's made from gourd. So, basically, these like kind of cup thingies that you would like gather water or, serve things in, right? And the West African instrument was called the akonting, right? So, that instrument was the basis for the banjo. So when the people that were enslaved who came over from Africa and came to the US South, they obviously brought their instruments with them. So, going through the early days of slavery up into the 1800s, enslaved persons would be like playing this instrument that they knew from their home country, and then in the US it became known as the banjo. Now, cue in the 1850s, where we're just getting out of Reconstruction, and now the enslaved peoples are getting on their path to freedom, right? And now minstrel shows have popped up. Now, minstrel shows are these traveling shows where white people perform in blackface, and do so in a way to mock and, be hateful towards Black people. That's the purpose of the minstrel shows. There was no, don't let anybody try and, whitewash the history of that. Minstrel shows, period, end of story, were derogatory towards Black people, and the goal was to make fun of Black people, right? So they started using the banjo in these shows. So that is how the banjo became part of mainstream culture in a way, but it was still viewed in a negative way because it was associated with minstrel shows and Black people. But over time, that sound became part of what was known as, people were talking about hillbilly music, whatever, again, very derogatory. But then over time, it got commercialized, repackaged, and became what we know as country music, very mainstream, very white. So again, the origins of country music, that basic sound, that banjo that you hear in the majority of country songs, came from West Africa, came from Black people. Now, as you look at country music as a whole, there's been Black artists that have done country music, that have performed country music. Problem was, they were not getting the same airtime as their white counterparts. There was this thing back in the day, especially in the early 1900s, and then, almost until the 60s, basically, which was called race records. So basically, if you're a Black person, like, your music was not going to be promoted to white people, right? And race records were very, frowned upon because, again, it was Black people. It had anything to do with Black people, were not interested in that kind of music, right? Despite the fact that they may be going to church and, taking from the spirituals and the gospel music that you heard. They think about Elvis Presley. His music was very firmly rooted in spirituals and in gospel music. That was his main influence, right? Now, I know he's not particularly country, but it's that same mentality of taking from Black culture, incorporating that into the music, and then making millions of dollars off of it, right? Difference with Elvis is that he didn't seem to retreat from that as much. And, even though it wasn't highly publicized, he did try to be an ally in certain instances. So, that again, something to just be mindful of. But that country music base, a lot of it, again, not only came from the banjo and all of that, came from gospel and came from spiritual music. So again, calling it race records to kind of segregate and marginalize was another way to keep Black folks out of being able to sing about their experiences through the use of country music, right? So as we've kind of progressed over time, now recently we're starting to see more Black artists, come to light and be really celebrated for their work. So the Grand Ole Opry, which is, basically the everything of country music, right? Like once you get it, it's like getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. If you're a country music star, you want to play at the Grand Ole Opry and you want to be, inducted into that Hall of Fame, the Country Music Hall of Fame. The first Black artist to be able to do that was Charley Pride in the year 2000. Now, many of you may not have heard of Charley Pride. I'm going to get back to the women in a minute because I know this is Women's History Month. But I had to say, when I discovered Charley Pride, oh my gosh. Listen, if you have Apple Music, Spotify, whatever, find you a Charley Pride playlist. Because let me tell you, it will change your life. His voice will literally just have you like crumpled up in tears because of just the power and the beauty and him just speaking about his experiences in so many different ways. But if you didn't see a picture, you wouldn't have known he was a Black man. So again, the marketing, especially in the beginning, the marketing of his music didn't really include his picture, didn't try to highlight the fact that he was Black. Right? It was about, well, yeah, his music's really good and we want to make money off of that, but we don't want to let the masses know that a Black man is singing country music. So that is what, he had been performing for decades before that, but it's only in the year 2000 that he finally received that award and that recognition, right? And sadly, he passed away maybe like about a decade later. So going back to women in country music, You think about Tracy Chapman, her singing the song Fast Car. Now, with Luke Hope singing it, me personally, because I remember the original and just remember how it resonated with me, wasn't in love with the redo, right? But, personal preferences, it's all good. No hate on him because I like a lot of his other music as well. But it was so interesting because when you watch Tracy Chapman perform that song, it's kind of bridges country and folk in terms of its genre, but she's speaking about and singing about her experience as a queer Black woman trying to find her way in this world. And, she wants to be someone and all of that. It kind of loses a bit of its sauce when it's sung by a white man, right? Just because it's a whole different experience. Now, if he's singing it from the perspective of, maybe poverty or, looking at it from a different lens, I could see that. But, it was a huge genre jump in terms of the topic, not in terms of the music itself. But she did not receive any attention from the country music, fan base or anything back when that song was released in the 90s. It's only now when Luke Combs did the remake that everybody's like, oh my God, this song's amazing. You wrote it? And Luke's like, nah, that was Tracy Chapman. Hold on, let me bring her out for the Grammys, right? So, that I found was very interesting. But then now let's turn back to Beyonce. So there's a few folks out there that are like, oh my gosh, she has no business doing country, this, that, and the other. Lest y'all forget, Beyonce is from Texas. She's from Houston, Texas. She's born and raised, and she's always represented for the South. She's never made any bones about it. If you ever listen to the Lemonade album, okay? And I should really preface all of this. I'm not like a member of the Beehive, right? Like, I like Beyonce, but I'm not like, oh my God, I don't have that feeling towards any particular musical artist, right? Like, I enjoy their music or whatever. I'll go to, but I'm not one who's going to drop hundreds on a concert. I'm cool listening to it in my car or on my couch, right? That's just me. But, so I want to be clear that this is not, I'm trying to defend her. I just really want to talk about the genre and the history as a whole. So if you listen to the Lemonade album, there's one song on there called Daddy's Lessons. And actually, that was my favorite song on the whole album because she really went into talking about Black people's experiences with guns and talking about the Second Amendment from a Black perspective. And so I actually ended up teaching a course on it. I ended up incorporating it in another course that I teach because, again, I thought it was just such an interesting exploration about openly talking about gun ownership and that, listen, she's talking about how her daddy said, this is her Second Amendment. My daddy said, shoot. If something pops off, my daddy said, shoot. And it just really just flipped the script on the discussion around Black folks and Second Amendment, especially now, today, when we're seeing the largest group of new gun owners are Black women. So there's a connection there, right? So not only did she write and perform and sing that song and perform it as part of the Lemonade album, she also performed it at the Country Music Awards back in 2016 with the Chicks, previously known as the Dixie Chicks. Now, the Dixie Chicks changed their name because, of course, as we, Summer of Social Justice, a lot of groups start to really look at their name and be like, what exactly am I reflecting? And am I being sensitive to, all groups? And am I reflective of the times? And the Dixie Chicks made that internal look and said, you know what, we can't run around screaming Dixie anymore because of the racial connotations that come with it. So they changed their name to the Chicks. Lady Antebellum, another country group, did the same. Now, that turned into a hot mess because they changed their name to Lady A, and there was already a Black female performer that was using that name. So not quite sure where that ended up, but yeah, needed to do a little bit more research on that one from their perspective, right? Before changing your name, you really should be checking copyright. That's my free legal advice for today. Anyway, so she performed that song with the Chicks, Beyonce did in 2016 Country Music Awards. Huge backlash. All these unfortunately, the racist folks that listen to country music, and I'm not saying that everyone who listens to country music is racist. Hi, let's be very clear. But the racist segment of the country music fan base had a huge problem with Beyonce being on the stage. They're like, this isn't country. She doesn't belong, this and that. If you listen to Daddy's Lessons, There's no mistaking. That's a country music song. I mean, Taylor Swift and Justin Timberlake both released country albums that, in my opinion, when I listened to some of those songs, that was more pop than country. Okay. So, she fit the genre. She was, speaking to things that, gun ownership, things that should resonate with the country base, but they wanted no part of it. So there's that aspect. And also to remind everyone, she's not new to this. She's true to this. She's originally from Texas. This is her heritage. And then she had been performing country music before we got to, Renaissance. I believe it's going to be Renaissance Act 2 is when these songs, all of her country music songs are going to be released. So the historic part is really important, and the fact that she made history by basically breaking the internet with her, with her two new songs. Texas Hold'em is the one that now has brought her to the top of the Billboard charts. She is the first Black woman to be at the top of the Billboard country music charts with that song. And her other song, 16 Carriages, let me tell you, when I heard it, I felt it in my soul, because it was really talking about how you put your tears aside, you bury certain things because you have to focus, you have to grind, you have to move forward. Not everything in the song was my experience, but there were certain aspects that really resonated with me. Texas Hold'em, super cute, totally a bop. I can see the Lang dance is going to come with that. Can't say I'm going to learn it and have it on point, but you can see how it's something that could have broad appeal. And this is despite several country music stations refusing to play Texas Hold'em. Refusing. They're like, no, that's not country. And folks had to call them up and be like, listen, you play Taylor Swift and, her song Mean, that's a country song, but barely. Y'all played that. So why can't you play Beyonce? And some of them really relented and actually played it. And again, you saw more of it rise to the top of the charts. Now, Beyonce is not the only Black woman that's been involved in country music. There's an artist by the name of Mickey Guyton. I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, Guyton. She has a very interesting song called Black Like Me that she released after the 2020 Summer of Social Justice, after the murder of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, so many others. And that was probably, I won't even say probably, I think that is the most direct country music song that spoke to Blackness. And she's gotten some commercial success, but with the level of talent that she has, the question remains, why hasn't she, kind of risen to the top of the charts? So again, that institutionalized racism in country music is a real thing. Deviating from women for a second, thinking about Lil Nas X and Old Town Road. That's country. No question, that's country. But, it had commercial success, but the country music charts didn't want to have that song on there. They didn't want to honor him at the Grammys, didn't even want to consider it for so many reasons, right? I think that might be an intersection of racism as well as homophobia. So you've got that happening. So, we're thinking about that, thinking about Darius Rucker, formerly Hootie and the Blowfish. He had a whole bunch of country songs that came out, a couple of country albums that were really good. They were really, really good. But again, where's the critical acclaim that came from it? So, all I'm saying as we kind of embark on this Women's History Month, and we're thinking about all these trailblazing things that women are doing in all of these different genres, whether it be in politics, whether it be in medicine, whether it be in education, whatever it is, don't forget country music. And don't forget the fact that there are some Black folks out there that are pushing the envelope and really trying to reclaim our place within the country music genre that we basically created but got excluded from. And definitely give those songs a listen. Check out, the two new songs by Beyonce. Check out Mickey Guyton. Check out, Lil Nas X and what he's doing. Definitely check out Charlie Pride just to kind of get that historical perspective. And sound off. Let me know what you think in the comments. Listen, country music isn't for everyone. Everyone may not be feeling it. I got into it because I happened to fall in love with a cowboy and I wanted to understand, okay, what are the values? Where are you coming from? What sort of frames your viewpoint of life? And as you know, it started with Trick Pony, poor me, and literally Pour, me, another shot of whiskey because she's going through a breakup, she's going through some hard times, everything. And that was the first country song that I was really introduced to. And it just kind of started from there. And now I have like a really ridiculous country playlist. So, there's always some good to find in everything. And I think, again, it opens your mind, it opens your viewpoint because here I am, a chick from the city in New York. And I've embraced country music as a very interesting genre. Don't get me wrong, I still have my reggae playlist, and my dancehall playlist right on point. Very much into my house music and my dance music, as well as piano, Afro beats. So I'm pretty diverse in my musical selections. But definitely keep an eye on what's happening in country. And don't be afraid to support those artists that are aligned with your worldview, with your heart, and with your ears. So that's all. Welcome to Women's History Month. Stay tuned because we're going to have some great guests this month, some female candidates that are running for office, and we're definitely going to be diving in more to women who are making history today, as well as a nod to those from the past. Take good care. Bye.